I'm pleased to introduce Alexandra Wilson, who I'm pleased has joined us this morning. Alex is the writer of In Black and White, which I've recently read and which is excellent. So thank you, Alex. So we just wanted to fire off some questions from you and hear a bit more from you about the book. And one thing that came from me when I was reading it, Alex, is how do you get the time to write a book in this job?
I think that's a very good question. For me, it was probably sacrificing sleep, to be completely honest. I think I don't get enough sleep. So talking about, life as well as law, I think I could definitely do with a bit more well-being and a bit more, a few more early nights, a few more later mornings would be great. But yeah, I think I just sacrificed quite a bit of sleep. Okay,
and can you tell us a bit about how the book came about? I don't want to give too much away. Obviously, I've read it, so I know that it is very, very close to your heart. And I don't want to give too much away. But can you just tell us a bit about what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, of course. So I tweeted about a year and a half ago, the beginning of 2019, just before getting on my feet, before I was about to, practice. Basically, a photo of myself, saying that I'm mixed race. I was 24 at the time. That I'm from Essex, obviously I'm a woman, and that actually this is what a barrister looks like. I was really trying to get out the message that, barristers aren't all middle class white men, and that tweet really picked up. And as a result of that, some literary agents reached out and asked whether I wanted to share my journey. I'd spoken a lot about, I'd blogged quite a bit about my upbringing and my experiences at university, and I think they'd read some of that and asked whether I wanted to write a book. And me being slightly crazy, I was like, yeah, sure, pupillage. Let me write a book. So yeah, that's how it came about.
And what sort of thing did you want to get across to your audience?
I think the main thing that I really wanted to get across was, obviously my book comments a lot on race and class, and I really wanted to get across that actually those two things are both are huge problems in the criminal justice system and the family justice system. Because actually, if you're from a certain type of background, you're much less likely to become a barrister or a solicitor. But also in terms of our clients, particularly in my criminal practice, I found that there were a lot of young Black or other ethnic minority children coming through the system, that a lot of the defendants just generally tended to be from lower economic backgrounds, but also tended to be, a lot of my clients are disproportionately Black or Asian or from another minority background. And I was seeing those sort of trends every single day. I looked into the statistics and realised that, of course, there was a huge disparity. And I really wanted to kind of highlight that and give a voice to those people. So obviously within my book, I share quite a few stories, anonymized, of course. But yeah, I tried to give them a bit of a voice and highlight why race and class are so important, and why really our justice system is failing people in relation to both race and class.
Alex, due to the book, which has been a big success, and the issue of race, which you've raised in the book, which has been so prevalent in the news this summer, you've recently come into the public eye, and I have to say that I can't seem to turn in any direction without hearing about you or seeing you, and it's mostly in a positive way, but you have had some backlash, haven't you?
Yes, I really have. After sharing what happened to me in court a few weeks ago, when I was repeatedly mistaken for a defendant, I mean, I was trolled quite badly on Twitter by random people, mostly. A lot of them either seeking to undermine my experience or to reinforce the point I was making, incidentally. A lot of people saying that things like, well, you look like a chav, you look like a criminal, it's no surprise. People telling me that Black people are animals, that Black people commit crimes, and that's why as a Black person I'm mistaken for being a defendant, and if Black people started behaving themselves, then I wouldn't be mistaken for a defendant. So pretty outrightly racist stuff, and for me, like I said, that reinforced the point that I'm making, that actually we have a long way to go in this country in terms of racism. I think it's very tempting to think that actually we're in this kind of post-racial society where I think for some time in Britain particularly, we've kind of thought, actually, you know what, most people are getting on. There are, you know, the few bad apples, but actually most people are completely fine with race. And I think this year particularly, it's kind of come to light that actually Britain has some deep-rooted issues that we need to address. And I've felt like personally affected by them in some of the backlash.
And I just wanted to ask you about that personal aspect of it. How does the kind of scrutiny that you've had recently, both positive and negative, how does that affect you as a person as you're going about your daily business?
Sometimes it can be quite difficult. It's it by far is mostly positive, and you know, it's lovely to see how much support I've been getting, particularly in the profession. I actually think that, you know, so many barristers and solicitors and judges have been so supportive, and outwardly so, you know, even if it's in a private way by emailing me, but that has been so reassuring. It's been really good to see that people are, you know, reading my book and engaging. But perhaps it's human nature. Sometimes, you know, you can have 50 lovely comments and then someone will say something horrible, and that's the one you read, and that's the one that sticks in your head. You know, I couldn't tell you, it's terrible. And I sometimes think, Alex, you need to be more positive, because, you know, actually you read through 50 lovely ones and I couldn't remember half of them, but you always remember the bad ones. And then the ones that really, you know, tick over in your head. So yeah, I think that's how it affects me on a personal level.
And how does it affect you when you go into court now and your client maybe has seen you in a newspaper or on television or heard you on the radio? What's the relationship like now with your clients?
It's interesting, actually. I think quite a few of my clients have said, oh, I've seen you on the television, or some of my ex-clients have emailed me. Don't know how they got my email address directly, but you know, quite a few of them have emailed me and said, you know, I've seen you on the television, and some have written really lovely messages, to be fair. Some of my clients have emailed to say, I just wanted to say that, like, I saw your experience, but I couldn't have been prouder to have had you as my barrister. And for me, that actually means a whole lot more than, you know, a random member of the public or even a colleague saying that. Actually, when a client says that, that's why I do my job. I'm sure it's why we all do our job. It's for our clients, right? And so that client might not have told me at the time how happy they were, but for them to email now and just really want to share how happy they were, and, you know, how proud they were to say that I was their barrister. And, you know, some of them were saying, oh, I've been telling my friends that's my barrister, and that's really lovely for me. That, you know, that's been lovely. So it's been interesting, definitely having, especially new clients. I know you from somewhere. Like, you on the news. But that's, to be honest, the vast majority of the time, that's all it is. It's just, you know, a passing comment. A few people have said, oh, I saw that that you were mentioned by one of the Supreme Court justices, you know, and I think, thankfully, because the profession has been really supportive, it's really been said in quite a passing way. So yeah.
And what sense would you say that you have got now of the response from people to people in the public eye? Have you had some sort of flavour of that now?
Yeah, I mean, as in, have I had a flavour of what it's like to be in the public eye? Yeah, I think that actually there's a lot of pressure. I think that when you have a platform, there is certainly pressure, not only to not mess up, which I think we all probably feel in our general day-to-day anyway, but also a pressure to use your voice even more so, because actually sometimes it can feel like a huge responsibility, knowing that you have a platform, and when issues do arise, people expecting you to speak out about them. And I know celebrity, not that I'm a celebrity, but I know that celebrities have spoken about that before, that, you know, often when things arise, people will be saying, why haven't you spoken out about that yet? Why have you not said that yet? And it's that expectation that actually, now you've got a platform, you should be using it. And I think that, you know, I get tagged in things all the time now saying, you know, Alex, have you raised this? Alex, have you raised this? Alex, particularly if it's got anything to do with the bar, you know, even if it's someone's personal grievance, and that can be, it just adds to my inbox as well, to be honest. I think sometimes I'm like, I actually still have a full-time job, so please, can I just, you know, take a bit of a break? So I think that's one of the tricky things. In terms of any other aspects, in terms of being in the public eye, I guess you just have to be a lot more conscious of what you're posting, what, particularly in terms of like, you know, I'm someone who likes selfies. I do them all the time with like, well, I used to anyway. Now you're a lot more conscious because you know that there are going to be trolls, you know that there are going to be people online who might not say nice things. And so it's being really aware of that and being a bit thicker skinned about it as well. Because I think, you know, actually you've got to at some point draw the line and say, these people can say whatever they want, but I've got my good friends around me, I've got my family around me, I've got supportive colleagues, and so, you know, those odd people actually don't make a difference. Okay. I'm getting there.
And one final question from me in this section, Alex, before Keely comes back in. Would you do it again?
Would I speak out again or write a book?
Would you write the book? Would you speak out again? Would you be the public figure that you've become again?
I think I would, to be honest. I think, well, in fact, I know I would. I absolutely would, because actually it's so important that, you know, that our voices are heard. I think that it was a huge risk, if I'm honest, and it was something I worried about a lot. Obviously, I wrote it during pupillage, and I remember thinking, oh my God, people are going to be like, this girl's only a pupil. What? Why is she writing about the whole profession? But that was the point. The point was that I was writing it as a fresh perspective, as someone who's coming in. I wasn't, you know, setting out to say that I was an expert. It was very much this is my perspective coming from a non-traditional background, and this is what I'm seeing. And, you know, I'm conscious of that now. I still, you know, I might make comment or reference to certain things, but I always acknowledge when I have no expertise or no direct experience in that area. And I think that's really important. I think as long as you acknowledge your limitations and acknowledge what you don't know as well as what you do know, I think using things like social media and the news and stuff as a platform is actually really effective and puts pressure on the right people, so government, the court service, to actually affect real change.
And I think one thing that I really, really admired in your book, Alex, was the footnotes. That you'd obviously put so much thought and effort into that, and about making sure that all statistics were accurately recorded and your sources were accurately recorded, because you're right, I think it could, if not, get you in trouble and spiral out of control. Mm-hmm. And I know you spoke about some of the cases, and obviously the identity of cases are secret in the book, but it is obviously difficult from all of us not to take these cases home with us, but obviously these cases stuck in your mind. How did you pick these cases?
So, do you know what, actually the picking cases part was what I found more difficult, was narrowing it down. You know, that actually there were so many cases I was like, I want to get this client's story across. I want to, you know, I really want to get this important message from this client across. And actually, I kind of had a list of like all these cases. I was like, oh my God, Alex, you need to cut this down. Like, otherwise, it's going to be like a chronology of all your cases. And so I think what I tried to do, and, you know, part of the anonymization process was actually, you know, making sure that obviously people weren't identified. And so actually in that process, there were some cases, for example, that it was way too easy to identify someone, even if you changed their name or changed their race or changed their gender. The case was too unique and it would have been too easy for other people to identify them. So that ruled out some cases. And I think in terms of narrowing down the others, I just had to decide. I wanted a balance. I hope you found this, but, you know, I wanted some really serious that actually were getting across a really important message, but also some of the more light-hearted ones, because that's our job. You know, you know, our job is actually, sometimes you'll come home and you'll be like, I'm exhausted. That was a really emotionally draining day. I feel like you
spoke a bit about well-being as well, and I think that comes across in what you're saying as well, that you can't always take it home with you, and sometimes you have to. The same with the trolling. Sometimes you have to come home and just say, like, well, just laugh at it.
Yeah, and that's what I think we have to do that in our jobs anyway, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, we have such a responsibility. We're representing people in some of the most important decisions in their lives. And actually, sometimes there might just be like a little funny moment in the day. And that's what I tried to capture, that actually sometimes there are little funny things as well. Like, our job's not all tears and, you know, frustrations. Actually, they're really, you know, sometimes I'm laughing. Sometimes I'm like, actually, there's some really enjoyable moments of my job. And I really wanted to capture that too. So it was about finding a balance between those.
Okay, one thing I personally found really relatable was the class issues that you talk about. I'm a girl come from a working class family from Deptford. I didn't go to Redbrook University. No one in my family is a lawyer. I was only the second person in my family to go to university. And I never forget, on my first day at university, I was told, you will never make it. You'll never get a training contract, you'll never get pupillage. I would hope now that things are changing and the CVs are not being chucked in the bin if you don't go to Oxford or Cambridge, which was the case historically, in my opinion. Are things changing? Are we there yet?
I mean, I definitely think that progress is being made. I think that there are definitely, you know, for example, in my chambers, I know that we do like blind applications where, you know, we take out the person's name, we take out what university they went to, and I think we take out their age as well. So we take out some of the key characteristics that not, you know, typically might have actually prejudiced a person's application. So I know we do that. Can I say that every chambers does that? No. Like, I still think that, for example, at the bar, there were still some sets. I just physically don't believe that they don't favour certain universities, for example, because you look at their website and everyone went to the same university, you know, or the same two universities. Like, there were definitely some sets where it's still Oxbridge, or, you know, you look at some chambers and they don't have a single black person in their chambers. And you just think, you know, how does that happen? Or it's still, you know, so predominantly male. And you just think, how? Or everyone went to an independent school. I think we've still got a long way to go. So I think that there are chambers making progress. And I think there are some that are really committed to that and are genuinely really trying to make a difference. But I don't think anyone's there yet. And I still think we have a long way to go. And it's, you know, also, it's not just about entry level. You know, I think that actually one of the big issues is retention. You know, we're starting to feed some of these, you know, people from different backgrounds in. So we're starting to bring in more working class people, we're starting to bring in more black people, we're starting to bring in more women. But then when you look at the top of the profession, the partners, the QCs, the judges, how many of those came from state schools, you know, working class backgrounds? How many of them are black? How many of them are women? When you actually look at the more senior ends, there's still a huge gap. Or even just like, you know, the kind of mid-level, the people that are about to get there. What are we doing wrong as a profession that so many people are leaving at that point? And I think that's about a culture change, right? I think that it's beyond just being like, okay, we've accepted some women now into our chambers, or we've accepted some, you know, some people who didn't go to Oxford. I think actually there needs to be a whole shift where we start to appreciate diversity rather than doing it to tick a box.
Yeah.
Alex, there's a couple of questions, if I could just jump in, going on from what you've just said. I've just interviewed some judges and they were talking about exactly the same thing. It's the retention which is a problem, particularly for women. And Keely's already mentioned that you talk about well-being in the book. And I wanted to ask you about well-being, because one of the things that Keely and I and everyone at It's a Lawyer's Life hears about all the time is the stresses. And whenever I write an article about the stresses that I experience as a barrister, I get thousands of messages and people, it really resonates with people. So you're fairly new at the bar. What's it like in terms of your personal, emotional and physical well-being to be on this treadmill, not only of work, but for you, these extracurricular activities, as it were, that you've got into?
I think, being completely honest, I think it can be quite tough. And I think it's brilliant that, you know, for example, you're writing articles about it, but I don't think enough people in the profession speak about it, to be honest. I think that it's still a bit taboo, you know, for people to talk about well-being and to talk about when they're under pressure. I think people still expect the barrister to be very resilient, to kind of never show, and solicitors too, you know, never show weakness. Like, we must be strong at all times. And actually, of course, we're all human. And, you know, when you have a lot of pressure, sometimes it can feel like a lot. I think for me, it's about just making sure I make time to do the things that I love doing. Obviously, it's a bit hard during COVID. And, you know, things have got particularly busy during a time where you're not allowed to, like, really go out much, you know, that, like, there's so many limitations, and I personally find that quite difficult. But, you know, in normal times, or when the restrictions are less oppressive, I like to, you know, go out for dinner with my friends. I like to, you know, go for cocktails quite a lot. I like to, you know, swim, and I think that really helps me. And I'm really lucky that, like, actually I've got a really good group of friends, many of whom are not at the bar, and I actually think that really helps. You know, a lot of my friends are friends from school that have completely different lives to me. You know, some didn't go to university and have been working since the age of 17, 18. Some did and are just, you know, pursuing whatever it is they like they're doing and what they love. And for me, that keeps me really grounded. I think that I just mix with such a mix of people that, like, honestly, if I talked about the bar in my personal life all the time, they'd be like, Alex, we don't care. Like, we actually don't care. And I
For everyone to choose.
yeah, and I think sometimes, like, you just need that. You need people around you who are just going to be like, okay, switch off. Like, actually, we don't want to talk about your job anymore. We want to talk about, you know, what the last Love Island series was like. And actually, like, that really helps me be like, yes, Alex, you're a human being, switch off, no one wants to hear it. Let's go. And for me, that's really, like, I think that really, really helps.
Yeah, and following on from a point that Keely made about being working class and coming from a background that isn't traditional, looking at yourself now with the book out, are you a barrister, a black barrister, or a female barrister, or a combination of all three, or something completely different?
You know, I was thinking about this in the car the other day because I was listening to
See, I'm a mind reader, Alex.
You are. I mean, honestly, I was listening to an interview the other day, and someone was saying how frustrating they find it that, like, you know, it was a black woman speaking, and she was like, she's an author, and she was saying she finds it frustrating that she's always described as a black author rather than an author who is black. And I was kind of reflecting on it and thinking, oh, is that problematic? Because I'm referred to, and you've probably seen in the media all the time, as like a black barrister. And I started to think about my own identity. I think I go through mini identity crises all the time. But ultimately, I think I would describe myself as, my job is being a barrister. I'm also an author because I've written a book, but I don't define myself by my profession. You know, I'm Alex Wilson. Like, I am just, people do see different sides. Obviously, in a work context, that's, people see me as the barrister, and because my book's about work, of course, people then see it as an author. And, you know, a lot of my social media is catered around work, but would I say that's who I am? It's still a job. And I think that's actually, going back to Wellbeing, I think it's really important to actually sometimes draw a line and be like, that is my job, but that's not everything. That's not, you know, my whole world. Actually, like, I'm a woman who likes to go for cocktails as well, you know, am I a cocktail woman? So yeah, I think.
Do you know what
Sorry, Keely, carry on.
The part about you being a woman, the bit I really, really liked, and it ended up in a massive discussion with myself and my husband about it, was what you said about there being a pot of money in chambers that could be used for female barristers, or barristers, I suppose it could be men as well, who they go off and could have a baby, because there's so much pressure on the profession as a woman that if you have a baby, can you afford it? Like, will you go on to, you're self-employed, will you go on to statutory maternity pay? How quickly do you have to come back? Do you then have to sacrifice your family and, again, your well-being?
Yeah. To me, it's crazy, because I do think that I appreciate and completely understand we're self-employed. I do understand that. But I also think that we have a duty, knowing how bad retention is for women. I think we have a duty to address that. And if, and I say if, because I don't know if this is the whole reason, but the excuse that's always given is because women go off and have babies, right? That's the excuse that's always given for retention. And I don't think that's the whole story, if I'm honest. I think, you know, there are so many other things like well-being and support. So I don't think it is just that. But yeah, I think a key, you know, one of the factors may be that women tend to be primary caregivers. So often that's and you get no maternity pay, it's statutory, you know. But I think, given that the same excuse used to be used for pupils, you know, the same excuse used to be used all the time. We can't pay pupils because we're self-employed. But we managed to find a way, because we knew that actually the only way to improve diversity in our profession was to pay people, because some people just cannot afford to do a year of unpaid work. And I think the same approach needs to be taken. Like, we know that women are underrepresented in the senior parts of our profession. So why not do something about it rather than talking about it all the time? Do you know what I mean? I really do think that what it takes, and I think the key thing is, what it takes is commitment from men and women. You know, it's not just, especially in a male dominated profession, we can't just have women calling for this, you know, and also not just women who want to have children. Actually, it's really important that this is a unified approach, that actually what we're saying is it's so important to have women in senior positions, that even if as a woman I don't want to have a child, or even if as a man this isn't going to benefit me, I support the idea and the principle that women need to be in senior positions, and this is a way to help it, and therefore I'm in support of it. And I think until we get to that point, you know, we're basically just talking about something that isn't practically going to happen, because like, we need to see practical change, not just talking about how much we can encourage women to apply for senior roles, because at the end of the day, women are still the ones that have to have babies. So unless men can start having kids for us,
we're not quite there yet.
do you know what I mean? Until we're there. Once we're there, I'll be signing right up. I'll be like, please do me the honest.
Here's a question for you, Alex, that I want to ask a lot of lawyers. What does being a lawyer mean to you?
For me, it's the kind of, the first word that comes to mind is responsibility. It's a huge responsibility for me. Like, you know, I'm on a daily basis, I am quite literally the voice for someone else. You know, I am the kind of the puzzle piece in between them and the court. I'm connecting them to the court. I'm speaking on their behalf. I'm communicating what they want to say in a way that is suitable for the court, essentially. And for me, that is a huge responsibility, because if I get it wrong, not only do I not best represent the interests of my client, but actually I could do quite the opposite. So, and also I think even more so, you know, for us as barristers, quite often we meet our clients on the day, particularly when you're junior. You know, I know as you get more senior, you meet your clients in advance and you have conferences in advance. But when you're junior, I often, like very, very, very often, meet my client on the day. And I don't take that lightly. You know, someone meets me an hour before their case and has to trust that I will represent them, you know, and represent their interests. That's terrifying for them. I would be terrified. Being completely honest, I would be terrified. I'd be like, who is this person? And now I've got to trust them to represent my interests. So I see that as an even greater responsibility, that actually I need to make sure that they can feel like they trust me, because, you know, these are real issues in people's lives, and some of the most important issues.
Yeah. And so, Alex, are we going to get what's next? Are we going to get a follow-up book? Is there going to be a movie? You in the movie?
Could you imagine? I mean, that's the key question. My book has been optioned for a TV drama at the moment, so hopefully that will be, you know, it's all very, who knows at the moment, but that might happen.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's exciting. Do you know what? It's really exciting, because actually I remember growing up and not seeing like my sort of family represented on TV. Like I literally growing up, I don't remember seeing mixed race families on TV. Like there were a few black families. I can think of the Prince of Bel-Air, you know, and like that is you know what I mean? And I was just like, that was American, but I don't remember seeing that British black family represented properly on TV. And so for me, like even that alone, like is like a huge step. But that to one side, seeing like people like me in the legal profession, you know, I found it really difficult not seeing that many people. And that's not to say that there aren't any, because actually there are some brilliant like black and other ethnic minority. And it's weird that they always say that the wrong way around. It's ethnic minority. Ethnic minority women who are more senior to me, of course there are. And actually it shouldn't be on them to have to be constantly visible all the time to every younger barrister, because actually that's draining in and of itself. But there aren't enough. That's the point. That as a profession, we still haven't got enough, and so a huge pressure does fall on those who are there to be hyper visible and to, you know, be a role model and mentor younger people. And there's only so much they can do, because they still have to do their own practice, you know. And I'm understanding that pressure more and more now. And I'm still really, really junior. I'm still a baby at the bar. So I think in terms of visibility, like for me, that's really exciting thing.
So when Hollywood comes calling, Alex, who's gonna? Yeah, when they come knocking at your door, who would you want to play you?
Who would I want to play me? Oh, that is such a good question. I don't really. Do you know what it is? I don't really know that many young actresses.
You're as bad as me.
Do you know what I mean? That's the problem. I literally, all of mine would be like older. I'm like,
could they de-age Halle Berry, do you think?
oh my god, that's who I was thinking, Halle Berry. I was literally going to say that, and then I was like, oh, am I shooting my shot a bit high there, saying Halle Berry and me are on par? But that was who I was thinking as well, to be honest. I think Halle Berry would. Oh, can you imagine? That would be just. Maybe they could set it in the future. Maybe I can morph into Halle Berry. That would be great.
Okay, Alex. Now you've done the serious bit. We're going to have some fun.
Okay.
So we have a questionnaire which we use called This Lawyer's Life. And it's a quick fire round, and Keely's going to ask you some questions and I'm going to ask you some. We don't want you to think about it. It's just what comes to you first of all.
Okay, perfect.
My early morning ritual is?
To snooze my alarm. That's what I do every morning.
If you could invite any 3 people to a dinner party, who would you choose?
Okay, one would definitely be Michelle Obama.
Oh,
she's just like super inspirational. You know, she's great. Who else would I invite? Probably Barack as well. We can come. He can come along. You know, he's pretty great. And who would be my final guest? I would say maybe Jimmy Carr, just to throw a random one in there. I know. He's not a very popular comedian. I think a lot of people are sort of like, oh, I don't know about his jokes. But I find him quite funny.
I find him funny as well.
Yeah. I'm so glad someone else does.
Okay, Alex, if I was omnipotent, I would.
What would I do? I mean, I'd be God. No, that sounds so arrogant, doesn't it? That wasn't quite.
You would be omnipotent. You can do what you like.
What would I do? To be honest, I would probably try and, solve poverty. I think, I know that's such a huge thing, but I genuinely think it's one of the biggest issues, and it's a bit of a serious one. I know this was meant to be light-hearted, but
no, you can be serious. Doesn't matter.
So we probably know the answer to this, but if a film was to be made of your life, what would it be called?
I guess it would probably be called In Black and White.
Just in case anyone forgot.
Alex, my childhood crush was.
Oh, okay, this is really embarrassing, but my childhood crush was 50 Cent.
Yay.
Embarrassing?
No.
Why is it embarrassing?
I mean, when he was singing like Candy Shop, and I'm like, when I learned the lyrics to that later in life, I was like, oh, that's a bit rude.
Who would you least like to be stuck in a lift with?
Least like to be stuck in a lift with.
And you're not allowed to say Keely or me.
All right.
Who was I least likely? I would say. Is it Nick Griffiths, the one who used to be BNP?
Griffin, yeah.
Nick Griffin, that's it. Yeah, I can't even get his name right. Yeah, but I wouldn't want to be in a lift.
We had a debate for It's a Lawyer's Life, who is the greatest fictional lawyer of all time. And I won't tell you who won, but I want to ask you who you would choose.
The best, okay, I would say Annalise Keating from How to Get Away with Murder. She's pretty brilliant. Or I do like Suits as well, so I'm a bit, but no, Annalise Keating, because she's great. Can I find out who won now?
It was Legally Blonde.
Oh, how can I not? Yeah, fair.
Come on, the greatest lawyer of all time is Elle Woods. This is a fact.
Elle Woods. I mean, Reese Witherspoon pulled that off in a.
Yeah.
She
did. So did I.
Yeah. Honestly, it was motivating for all of us. I was like, if Elle Woods can do it, I can do it.
Brilliant. Renna, any other questions?
Yeah, the most interesting person I've ever met, apart from Keely and myself.
The most interesting person I've ever met would probably be. I met he's an activist and was a rapper. He's called Akala, and he speaks out about a lot of different issues. But he was
And talking of books, Keely, do you want to show us the book again, in case anyone missed it first time round?
No, Alex, on a serious note, on behalf of It's a Lawyer's Life, we really want to thank you for speaking with us today. Hopefully when we come out of the other side of COVID, we'll be able to do something together.
That'd be really nice.
In person, which would be really, really nice. But yeah, on behalf of Ren and myself, we love the book.
Thank you.
And wish you the best of luck. We look forward to see what's next.
Thank you so much, and thank you both for having me.
And thank you for being such a fun guest as well, because we love fun lawyers.
That's what we should all be, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So best of luck to you, Alex.
Thank you so much.
We'll meet again after all these restrictions are lifted.
Definitely. I'm thinking cocktails.
Brilliant. Yes, absolutely.
We just do a quick, should I do a quick selfie of the Zoom with the book in front of it for Twitter?
Yeah, perfect. That's such a good idea.
I can hear my husband laughing at me upstairs. I'll put that up. Wait a second. Perfect.
Brilliant.
Thank you
so much, Alex.
Thank you so much, both of you. You're really
Alex, take care, and yeah, we'll keep in touch. I'll send you my number anyway.
Perfect. Yeah, please do, and we'll definitely go for a drink when all of this is a little bit less crazy, which hopefully is sooner rather than later. Do you know what I mean?
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Bye.